It is a Christmas edition of Flyers Daily. Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you're having a good and happy and safe holiday with your family, you and yours. And it is a Monday. Just because it's Christmas doesn't mean we give them a day off. Heck no. Joining us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, happy holidays.
Thank you to you and your family as well, and also to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, I talked about this in yesterday's episode, but I couldn't help but think back to Christmases of the last 4 or so years. And from a Flyers hockey standpoint, I know a lot of fans, were at this point of the year, we're kind of like scratching our heads. Late Novembers and Decembers had not been kind. The organization lost identity, and they seem to have refound that with some very key moves in the offseason, organizationally. But where we are this Christmas, as opposed to where we were the last 4 or so years, is a markedly different franchise.
There is both on the ice, in the room, and around the team. There's a whole different feeling than there was even a year ago, and it starts at the top, but it's at every level. You can look really up and down the organization. The World Junior Championships are about to get started, and one of the top line guys on Team USA is a Flyers prospect. Russia's not even in the tournament, but if they were, Michkov would be one of the marquee guys. So, while they're rebuilding, there are guys tremendous promise right in the system, but right in the wings over the next couple of years. It's not like they've been just all for a one and done kind of a shot. So it's really, the organization's in a better space than it's been in a long time, and it's it's been really, really nice to see, because it's been, let's be honest, it's been a really, really long ride, and there's a long way to go. But but you stop at the holidays here. There's a significant break in the schedule, and you kind of take stock of where things are, and you realize how far it's come just in the last year.
Yeah, Bill, it's weird. Like, you feel like you finally get on the escalator that's moving up instead of either the treadmill that's not moving up or down, or you're on the escalator going down. And it's weird because, you and I have talked about this a few times over the years. It felt like there was just some kind of black cloud over the organization. And, there was a loss of identity. And I think Flyer fans, rightly so, felt disrespected, because one thing, like we saw it in the Detroit game, one thing about Philadelphia sports fans is they want an honest effort. And look, they want you to win, but you have to, at a minimum, play an honest brand of sport.
Yeah.
And like, we see this team going to Detroit, they're down 5-1. Bill, they stood around and watched that game like every fan in the building in that first period. And then they come out in the second, they chip away, they don't give up anything. They eventually take a lead. And that bad goal that Dylan Larkin scores on Hart, but then he battles back in overtime to make some huge saves. They have no business getting a point out of it. To me, as much as the rebuild is what's on the ice, the organizational identity was the first step of this rebuild, because if you didn't have that, none of this other stuff was going to matter.
Yeah, and the other piece of it too, and John Tortorella's touch on, has been in the room.
Yeah,
it's a very unified group. And it's not just everybody's buddy, but they push each other. There's accountability to the group. So if you're giving less than 100%, you have to look at everybody else, right? And it's that instant accountability where they know if you could have blocked that shot and you didn't, you got to answer those guys, and or whatever the case might be. It translates onto the ice. Let's face it, the game in Detroit, if you go back to those couple of games against the Rangers a few years ago,
where 9-goal.
Not only did they get their doors blown up, they didn't compete in those games. They literally stopped competing and just watched all night. And that first period, you're playing 3 times in 4 nights. It's the last game before a break. You're on the road. Hart's just back off of an illness. You could make a million excuses, and nobody did. They came out, and as you said, they chipped away in the second period. The emotion ratcheted up as the game went along.
Yeah.
And it would have been great to hold on to the 6-5 lead and go on and win that game. But even just come away with a point in that one, that one, you obviously won, you won wins, but that one really, the nature of the comeback, there's not too often you're going to have 40 minutes, you're down by 4. And I'll tell you, by the time it got to 5-3, the fight with Seeler and then the back-to-back goals by Couturier and Frost, you knew that Flyers can do something here. They just keep building what they're doing during the game. You could go into the third period down by a goal or down by 2 still, but you feel like get this next one back, and you're really onto something here, and that's a really nice feeling, because there are so many times when the games really would have gone sideways, and you would have gone in the break with a pretty lousy feeling, honestly. So it feels good right now. I mean, it's something that there's a long way to go in the season. Don Tortorella has said, and he's right. There are going to be other stretches where wins are hard to come by or goals are hard to come by. But I think before the season, when Tortorella was talking about the room and the group, and you and I had said on there, well, we'll see what happens when adversity hits. It's easy to say that before the season, and they are showing the characteristics of a team that really, it's really that whole group every single night, and it's different guys, different situations, all the things you talk about in a team that's competing, and and not just competing. I mean, here they are sitting there in second in the Metro, and I mean, it's a long way to go. As Tortorella said, the grind really starts after New Year's, but here they are. They're right in the thick of things, and it's. I don't think too many people would have predicted that coming in.
Bill, I looked at that game, and going into it on the day of the Detroit game on Flyers Daily, previewing the game, I said the biggest thing they're going to have to overcome in this game is just the mental tank, the emotional tank is empty. You just went through a 9-game point streak, and you played a ton of very close games. A lot of one-goal games, a lot of OT shootouts and those kind of things. And when the streak ended the night before, it's the thud. It's okay, the streak is over. Now you've just been hanging on by your fingernails, trying to keep the streak alive and keep gathering points in the standings. And when that ends, it just all hits you. And they look like a team that had no energy, no detail. All of those things were out the window. But you mentioned the moment that would happen with Nick Seeler, because that was the shock paddles in a lot of ways for that game. What does Nick Seeler mean to this group? Because when he flipped out, it woke everybody up, and it became a calling card.
It sure did, and he's often that guy, and it's not just the number of shots that he blocks, for example. It's that some of those you can tell they sting. He feels it, right? But in big situations, like sometimes several in one sequence, and he's not a fighter per se, but if he has to, he'll stand up for himself or for a teammate. He's one of those guys who means a lot more than his stats would ever show. It's a guy who guys can look at really up and down the roster and even the farm system. This is a guy who's talking about your late bloomers. I mean, he really thought about leaving the game.
Yeah.
And, and now he's playing in the top 4, and he doesn't look out of place doing it. In those moments, I mean, just as a competitor, just as a team guy, I mean, players like that mean a lot, and it's going to be interesting to see. Flyers will get calls about him, right up to the deadline. He's unrestricted after this year. I was kind of thinking, well, is it worth say a third round pick to not have him?
Yeah, a
You know?
5% chance at a 200 game player.
Yeah, right. So and you know, I would say no. It's not like there's somebody who can step right in and replace him, replace his minutes. You know, I'm not saying he's the guy you signed a long term deal, but that's a guy who means more in the room, on the bench, and on the ice than any numbers you could slice and dice to show that because he's one of those guys who sets a tone. Everyday practice. You know, he never takes a day off. That's something too with Seeler.
Yeah.
You know, some guys have you know, you're in that grind, and you know, like, oh well, you know, we have a couple days before a game, and they kind of walk through the practice. That's something by the way that the team as a whole does not do. They are, you know, they practice well too, and but he's one of those guys who help establish that. He's one of the quiet leaders on the team, and just that on ice tone that he said in that game. I mean, that as you said, those were the shock paddles. And is it coincidental that Couturier scored right after that, and then Frost right after that? No, it wasn't. It really woke the team up, and then they, you know, and once you have that, you know, then somebody has to take the next step, and the next step after that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what good teams do, and that's what the Flyers did.
And the thing about it too, Bill, you know, having all of these meaningful games is such a big thing because, like this 7-6 game where you're down 4 goals after a period, you never know for some of the younger players or the guys that will be here when you may have to call back on that moment, or even the moment that happened 6 days prior where they won a 1-0 game against the same team. You know, you're going to have to recall those moments in some 7-game series along the way at some point, and to have to go through these meaningful games that of all different shapes and sizes. That's the big, you know, that's the catch-22. That's the big catch here, is that you can't just, because they're games, call it meaningful hockey unless it truly means something. Yeah. And these games truly mean something both now and long term.
Yeah, and that was something that you know, the last year. Listen, mind you, everybody's in the same boat, right? The games were as meaningful or non-meaningful for everybody because of where the team was.
Yeah,
but guys are getting tested now in situations where a lot more is riding on it. A lot more is riding on winning or losing. A lot more is riding on a good or bad shift at a key juncture of a game. It's a whole other kind of experience, and you know, and you sink or swim there, you know, in those situations, and the stakes just keep going up from here. But so far so good. You know, you've had guys who've in these hard games against good hockey clubs, you know, have shown their mettle and shown an ability to stand up in some of those big moments. And it's not like, you know, you know, you're not. They don't fire at all cylinders every night, every game, right?
Nope, nobody does.
But they find ways. You know, again, stealing something that Tortorella said, that it's a find a way league, and you know, it can't only be a game to one. I mean, we're not talking anymore about the Flyers scoring first versus trailing first, because right now, no matter what the score has been, they're in the game. Yeah. So that's you know, that's the next step in that evolution, and we've seen that over now more than a month. Or even if they are down early, that they can come back and they can win. Now, you know, now there are things that need to be cleaned up. You know, I think that they were living a little bit too much off their transition game and off the rush, and they were scoring a ton of goals, and you want to keep that up. But I do think the Flyers have to get back, and they did as last night's game went along too. Get back to establishing a forecheck, and you know, sometimes it's the greasy goals that count too. And you look at last night's game. What did you have? Right, you had 3 deflection goals and you had a couple rebounds.
Yeah, and
those are the kind of goals in those big games. They can, you know, games can hinge on that. But it was nice. It was nice to see those kind of goals too, even though they might not be necessarily the highlight reel kind of ones. Those are the ones that you can, if you can generate those, you can beat good teams, right?
Yeah, and it's territorial too. It ships the territorial battle down the other end. It's not just weighted to your end of the ice more, and they've defended less this year. Bill, one of the things about the game, after the first period, I had put a tweet out about it, and I mentioned it on the intermission during the Flyers-Detroit game. I didn't think they should pull Hart from the game, and there was a litany of reasons why. One was Sam Ersson had played 5 straight games prior. He played in the first 2 games of the 3 and 4, and obviously the first game of the back-to-back. And Hart hadn't played in 13 days. And had they pulled him, he would have got a period in of sour hockey. And the next time he would be eligible to play would be not until Thursday of this week, the 28th, which would have then been, I think, 19 or 20 days since he last played in Colorado in total. So I thought it was important for him to just stay in and battle through it. And the other reason I thought it was important, too, for the player, because I looked at that first period, I go, was he great in the first period? No. He gave up a 5 spot. Anytime a goal, you're just going to, you look at the raw number, but there was a lot of standing around watching. And I thought it was a good opportunity for the players in front of him to go, this guy's been here for us all year. We just did him dirty in that first period when he gets back from an illness and trying to get back in and playing. So let's kind of rally around him as well. But I was really glad to see the decision was to keep him in that game and let him work through it. I know he gave up the bad goal to Larkin, and it's a bad goal. But I'm glad that he battled all the way through that overtime as well.
Yeah, and if you look at his overall body of work, you can't let the one goal overshadow the rest of the performance. Shootout is the shootout, but the rest of regulation and especially in overtime,
that ghost.
Yeah. Oh, that should have been an overtime loss, and a couple on the Brinkhead too.
Yeah, the point blank one. Yeah,
they were really, really tough saves. So he ends up feeling decent about it. As you said, he had a long absence from illness, was just coming back off of. He had a couple of practices in, but then he was in, he was out. He could back up, or Peterson had to back up a couple times, and Sandstrom at the beginning of that stretch was backing up a couple times, and it's just not the preparation rhythm that especially Hart was very much preparation and rhythm oriented. So it took him a period to get going, and with the team not playing at all in front of him, I think instead of a 2-0, that's why it was 5-1, or 2 to maybe a 2-1. Briggs' goal was a little bit of a lucky one because that wasn't the shot he intended. So you got one back, but instead of getting up a 5 spot, maybe on an ordinary game when you're playing at kind of that level, it said maybe it's 2.
Yeah.
But he, so I think it was 100% the right call, and and I think Hart justified it by his overall body work the rest of the game. Yeah.
One of the things I saw it on social media before the shootout, and I've seen it from quite a few people after. Hart doesn't have great success in the shootout. So people are saying they should take Carter out and put Sam Ersson in. And I get the theory of it. Ersson's a really good shootout goaltender. But I will tell you that I don't think the greatest of shootout goaltenders are in a position to have success after sitting there for 2 hours and 40 minutes watching a game.
It happened. There's precedent in the Flyers game. The first game, John Stevens was behind the bench. That was that disastrous 06-07 season. It was against Atlanta. Johan Hedberg was in goal and did not have good shootout numbers. And Kari Lehtinen was a really good shootout goalie, but he'd been sitting all night. And it didn't go well. That was a rare shootout win for the Flyers because you come in cold like that, and
you got no chance.
They had no chance. He was 0 for 2 in that shootout because he was cold at that point. It would have been the same thing with any goalie. You just can't. I mean, unless the guy's injured and you have no other choice, you go with the guy who's been in there all night.
Yeah, and it's not just like you're disrespecting the guy that's in there. It's, I mean, you can't just jump off the bench and join the race and expect to be in, peak performance mode. It's never going to work. You say, well, maybe if Ersson knows this, he can get ready. But the only way to get ready is the 65 minutes that were played prior to that. You have to have a feel for a game too. So, but I thought that was, wow. Some people were really serious about it. And I'm going, yeah, that's cute. Good luck. That is not going A, to happen, or B, work. Bill, great stuff. Thanks for doing this on the holiday. As always, have a great holiday with your family. And Flyers will be back on Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow with another brand new episode. But read Bill's work on PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.